Thank you. You can all now be seated. I would like to welcome family and friends of Joseph Alan Davidson, or he was known to many, Alan. My name is Carly Mailing, and on behalf of Alan's family, I've been asked as a civil celebrant to conduct this ceremony today. We have gathered here today to celebrate a life lived long and full, a life full of adventure and filled with love. That love we feel surrounding us today comes from the foundation Alan built around him. Today will be hard for his loved ones. It is a sad time saying goodbye to someone you love and one who has made such an impact on your life. Today we mourn, but we will also celebrate all that was wonderful in Joseph Alan Davidson's life. I encourage you all to reflect on the way in which he impacted your life. Everybody here today will have a story to tell about Alan, and I encourage you to share these with one another. We all know Alan had many stories to tell, and boy could he tell a story. He was many things in his life: a messenger, pilot, student, writer, reader, editor, and supporter. No role he played gave him greater joy than the role he played to his family. Son, brother, husband, father, poppy, and great-grandfather. He was a family man through and through, and nothing meant more to him. These family values have been passed down from Alan through to his children and on to their children. This is a value Alan has taught them to keep high on the list and close to their hearts. This influence will live on through the generations. Although Alan has left this world physically, he will live on through you. Alan was one that gave often, without asking for anything in return. He was a true believer in karma. His spirit and passion for helping others in need was infectious. Although he wasn't one for pushing his own ideals onto others, I'm sure if he was here today, he would encourage you all to live life being kind and helping those in need. He believed that if everyone lived for others, then the world would be a happier place. Alan took great joy in the beauty of the world. In his later years, he loved to sit in the garden, feel the sunshine on his face, and hear the birds chirping. All his life he found great beauty in the written word and loved to read. It is in these things that you might like to remember Alan. He would want you to find beauty in the simplicity of the world. He would want you to feel the wind in your hair and the dirt on your fingers and remember that you are alive. Enjoy a quiet moment and take gratitude for all that life has given you. It is important that you all remember the good times you had with Alan and enjoy reminiscing together. If you are feeling grief, think about the link between grief and love, because without love, you wouldn't be feeling this grief. So I do encourage you to think about grief in a positive way. Today we will mourn Alan and feel great sadness for the loss, but also know that Alan did not for 1 second of his 95 years take any of life's beauty for granted. Today we will reflect on a life lived full of love, positivity, kindness, beauty, and gratitude. Joseph Alan Davidson was born on the 7th of July 1922. He was born in Belfast, Ireland, to late parents Arnold and Caroline. In 1928, Arnold and Caroline made the decision to leave Ireland and begin a life in Australia. Alan was just 6 years old, and his sisters Joan and Jeannie were 4 and 2 when they set sail bound for Melbourne. He spoke of the trip they made over from Ireland to Australia. They made the journey by boat, stopping in Cape Town, South Africa. He tells the story. When they stopped in Cape Town, they were put on a bus to make it to their overnight accommodation. It was a double-decker bus, and they'd never seen one before. Being a kid who knew no different, he ran straight to the top of the bus. The bus driver got so cross, he threatened to kick the family off the bus because the top level was for black Africans only. He also tells of the moment the boat almost capsized when making the journey from Cape Town across to Australian waters. They discovered that the captain was actually drunk and couldn't control the boat. He would laugh when telling this story and often count himself lucky that they weren't gobbled up by the great whites of the Indian Ocean. They always thought of themselves lucky and grateful for making it to Australia, and his parents spent the rest of their lives teaching their children to appreciate the life that they have. They settled in Oakley South and had no problem settling in. Alan's parents were friendly and likeable, and Alan inherited those traits from them. He began school at St. Mary Magdalene's in Chadstone and quickly made friends. It is said that he was a bit of a larrikin and a real daredevil, so school was unfortunately a little too subdued for Alan. He wanted to get out. He wanted to begin his adventure and start making a living. So he left school at age 16 and began working as a messenger for the Age newspaper, where his mother, Caroline, who was his great inspiration, worked as a journalist. When the Second World War broke out, he enlisted with the Royal Australian Air Force. His father and uncle both served in World War I, and he wanted to follow in their footsteps. Alan completed his initial training and was sent to Canada for advanced training under the Empire Air Training Scheme. Receiving his wings in September 1941, Alan was then posted to Britain. There he joined Squadron Number 460, which would come to be regarded as the most efficient Australian squadron of bomber command. Flying heavy bombers over Germany, Alan's skill saw him accurately bomb his targets, manoeuvre his way out of searchlights, dodge anti-aircraft fire, and escape enemy planes. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Medal on the 6th of November in 1942 for his leadership and courage in many successful operations against the enemy. In 1943, Alan moved to Squadron 156 in the British Royal Air Force. This squadron was part of the Pathfinder Force, in which the best and most experienced crews would fly ahead of the bombers. They would identify their targets, allowing the bombers to hit them with great accuracy. There is one story that the family has told us that Alan told often about his last raid on Berlin before he came home. Many dangerous raids followed for Alan and his crew, but perhaps the most eventful was that on Berlin on the 1st of March 1943. During this, their last raid on the city, their Lancaster was severely damaged by anti-aircraft gunfire. With a wounded crew member battling constant gunfire and persistent searchlights, Alan, with the help of his crew, managed to regain control of the aircraft just in time and bring the bomber home. For his calmness and skill, Alan was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. While away on these journeys, Alan liked to calm himself by writing poetry. His granddaughter Jackie would like to share with you a poem he wrote whilst on his journey in Berlin. Jackie, would you like to come up?
Take me over the ocean, back to the tall straight gums, back to the heart of the bushland, where the busy sawmill hums, or drop me off in the city midst the sound of horn and bell. Take me back to Australia and the sounds I love so well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jackie. You've had a way with words, Alan. Alan returned from the war in 1944, and soon after he met the love of his life, Sadie Ann, at a dance held at the RSL in Carnegie. 9 months later, Alan proposed. Sadly, Sadie is not here with us today. She passed away after enduring a long battle with cancer in 2011. Sadie was Alan's great love, and their children say that they were true romantics. Not afraid to display their affection, always holding hands and saying I love you. They were married for 61 years. They celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary with a big party down at the RSL Carnegie, where they met all those years ago, and where they've been active members for over 50 years. Just 2 weeks after Alan proposed to Sadie, Sadie developed polio and was bedridden for 5 years. This was a tough time for them, but Alan's true love for Sadie shone through as he fought to look after her and nurse her back to health. In 1950, when Sadie became well enough, Alan carried her into the Melbourne Register's office and they were married. 2 years later, their son Peter was born, and 18 months after that came their daughter Diane. Their little house in Carnegie was full of love and life, and with everyone healthy, life was perfect for Alan. His children speak of the love they felt from their father and knew he gave them every opportunity possible, plus more. He loved to read and shared his love with them by constantly reading to them and by spending many afternoons down at the library discovering new books to devour. He loved to take them camping, and they often went on family holidays. It is this time they spent bonding. Alan taught them to fish, how to swim, and how to build a fire. Peter, his son, recalls taking the caravan down to Torquay for Christmas when he was 12 and Diane was 10. He says Dad cooked a roast pork over the fire and we had Christmas lunch around the caravan table. Later, after lunch had settled, he surprised us with a surfboard and we all spent the afternoon teaching ourselves to surf. He said Alan was so much fun. He went on to have 5 grandchildren: Gavin, Stephen, Michelle, Chris and Jackie, who called him Poppy. And he then went on to have 8 great-grandchildren, who knew him as Great Pop. Alan loved to spend time with them and spent every weekend down at the local football and netball supporting them. He never forgot a birthday and just loved to tell them stories and make them all laugh. He insisted on them all being together every Sunday for Sadie's famous roast pork. It was Alan's favourite, with crackling and apple sauce. After Sunday dinner, Alan would make all the grandchildren and later the great-grandchildren chocolate ice cream in a cone with sprinkles. It was his favourite, and he liked to share it with them all. Once Peter and Diane had left home and started their own families, Sadie and Alan took several overseas trips to celebrate their 50s and 60s. They had one trip to Canada where they took 4 weeks to sightsee and take in the beautiful nature and another 8-week adventure throughout Europe. Alan visited his family in Ireland and went back to places he hadn't seen since the war. For their 40th wedding anniversary, Peter and Diane sent them off on a cruise around New Zealand. They went with their longtime friends and neighbours, Rosie and John. It is in this time, while the children were busy with their own lives, that Alan had time to get back to the things he loved doing himself. He spent time with Sadie and their little Maltese Shih Tzu Sal out in the garden in the sun, and he could often find them out there having lunch and a cuppa, or a beer if it was a Saturday. If he wasn't out in the garden, he could find Alan out in his shed. When David was a boy, he and Alan spent time together building model aeroplanes, and this is where he kept them, on display in the shed. You could find him reading or often sitting down to jot a poem or two in the shed. Alan was a giving man. He volunteered for the RSL and spent lots of his time down at the Carnegie RSL connecting with old veterans and supporting new servicemen. It was then, in 2011, that Alan's heart shattered into pieces. He lost his beloved Sadie to the horror of cancer. Throughout their life together, they faced such trials and tribulations that they always managed to come out on top, positive and smiling. This time, it was not meant to be. Alan lost a part of himself when Sadie died, and those close to them say that the sparkle in his eye was gone. After Sadie passed away, he moved to Serenity Views in Murrumbina, where the wonderful nurses helped ease the pain of the loneliness he felt after Sadie had gone. They read to him when his hands were too weary and played his favourite Elvis albums to help him relax. They took him to the garden to feel the sun on his skin, just as Sadie and he had enjoyed doing together. On the 24th of March, at age 95, Joseph Alan Davidson passed away peacefully in his bed, surrounded by the very love he had created with his children and grandchildren by his side. Some people believe that death is a final extinction.